And I promised there is the word industrial in my talk. But I want to talk about robot soccer as a challenge for AI because it's rather a big competition, has been for quite a while now. And in AI, wow. Okay. Now this one as well. Okay. So basically, since the invention of the computer, the idea was to develop systems that can perform better in certain areas than the human. And this started rather early because already in 1979, a program called BKG 9.8 won in backgammon against the world champion of backgammon, who was the world champion back then, Luigi Villa. And the programmer was Hans Berliner, who's shown in the photo. So backgammon was rather an easy game. And over the time, more and more games were tackled, and it was managed to win them against the best human players. You all will know that 1979, IBM's Deep Blue won against the chess world champion Garry Kasparov, and since then chess programs got better and better. So it's basically they are unbeatable now. In 2011, IBM's Watson won Jeopardy against two of the best American players. And this is a little bit different than the other games because this has to do with text understanding and knowledge, while all the other achievements mainly were in board games, so you have to calculate moves. And last year, Google's AlphaGo won against, I'm not sure whether he's the world champion, but he's a very famous South Korean player. And I think he tried it again and he lost again. So Go is also solved. And this year there was also poker. A computer won against the best poker players, I think somewhere. So a lot of games have already been solved by computers, so they play actually better than the best humans playing them. But this is all just in the machine. So this is just in the computer and does not take place in the real world. So in 1996, a couple of people came together and formulated this vision. They want until the midst of this century to beat the soccer world champion, the human soccer world champion in 2050 or around that, by a team of humanoid robots. So in a real stadium, outdoors, humanoid robots, two-legged, and play better soccer than the human soccer players. So this is quite ambitious. It's ambitious because it was nearly 20 years ago, and it hasn't been solved yet. So it's quite far out. So it's a lot more difficult because you have physical machines. You have to build the machines. You have to program the machines. They have to play together as a team, and they have to play under various circumstances. So it can rain, it can snow, whatever. It's legal in soccer, and probably they shouldn't harm the other players too much. So instead of pushing a lot of money in there, the RoboCup Federation has a different approach. They see themselves as a community, and they founded a lot of different leagues, from purely simulation leagues to which are rather abstract in 2D to 3D simulation, driving robots that play soccer, and walking robots that play soccer. So now there are currently 8 soccer leagues out there, but they didn't stop at soccer because under the impression of the earthquake in Kobe 2002, they founded RoboCup Rescue, which is a little closer to applications. So also a simulation league, a logistics league, a simulated robot league, and a real robot league where they try to solve rescue tasks. They also founded RoboCup Junior for children, so they basically can grow their next generation of RoboCup researchers. And because we now have service robots, there's also RoboCup at home for robots that work in the homes, cook and do something like that. And, there's the word, there's also RoboCup Industrial now with 2 leagues. One is the logistics league and the other one is a manipulation league, basically. So there are a lot of different competitions, and RoboCup is held every year in different parts of the world. This year it will be in Japan, and there are more than 3,000 participants there. And in Japan there will probably be over 200,000 spectators who watch this. So my team, Be Human, is participating in a humanoid soccer league, but this one is special. It's called the Standard Platform League because all participants use the same robot platform. You have seen it on the outside. It's the Now by SoftBank Robotics. And here our team traditionally plays in black, and the other team is from Leipzig. They play in blue. And well, they attack our goal, they push a lot, actually. Leipzig is known for that. But now, one player runs to the opponent goal, gets a pass, and would now like to score. Handling this ball is not so easy, so takes a little too long. The defender is there. It's in the way. Now the goalkeeper comes into play and says, well, I have to push that away. And for a while it works, but now, yeah. This is last year now, we would have already scored. So now the defender was too slow and we score the goal. So we see the same scene again, but from the perspective of the robot that in the end scores the goal. On the right hand side you can see the camera images. Normally they are colored and they have a higher resolution, but we are not able to record them in a real game at the full image size. So we reduced them a lot, and overlaid are the features that were detected while the robot looked in the environment. So there are lines. Sometimes the lines are combined to something like a penalty area. There is a penalty mark, other players. Now there's the ball. And on the left you see what the robots make from this information and communicate with each other. So there is a standardized protocol that both teams use. They are not allowed to reach each other's packets, but we can record the packets both teams send. And so we know where the robots think that they are on the field. So for example, now you see one robot in front of our robot, but in fact in the other view it looks like it would be behind our robot. That's because Leipzig's localization is not that good. So that's what they communicate. So they communicate the position of the ball, their own position, where they intend to go, and a lot of other stuff. So that's and they are allowed to send 5 packets per second each robot to its teammates. So that's what they exchange. So one of the core ideas behind RoboCup is not to start with, okay, we want to beat the humans in 2050, let's build robots that can do that, and starting with that in 1997, but instead to incrementally make it more difficult. So, for example, our league started in 2008 with an orange ball. The goals had different colors, which were easily detectable. One was blue, one was yellow. The players had 2 defined colors. One team played in red, the other in blue. There were only 2 players per team. The field size was 6 meters by 4 meters, and there was definitely constant lighting, like in this room. Now, the ball is black and white. We have the white goals on both sides. It's really hard to detect in which direction to play. teams can design their custom jerseys, which is nice, but it also means that the robots have to detect the custom jerseys to distinguish between their teammates and the opponent team. There are 5 players per team. The field is now 9 by 6 meters, and the kickoff is signaled by a whistle that the robots have to detect in a room where a lot of competitions take place at the same time. And the games are played outdoors, which means they are played indoors, but there can be natural lighting, and we now have artificial grass instead of just a carpet. So it has gotten a lot more difficult over the past 9 years. The robot we use is the Now from SoftBank Robotics, formerly known as Aldebaran Robotics. It has 25 joints that can be actuated. It has a 1.6 gigahertz Atom CPU, which is quite the opposite of what you are currently using as big data guys, I guess, when you do computations, because it's not really fast. It has 2 cameras in the head, not in the eyes, but above each other, one looking forward, one a little bit down. It has an inertial sensor unit in the chest and pressure sensors under the feet, and also microphones and speakers and etc. So it's a handy little robot that has quite a number of sensors. So the big challenge is this is a limited platform. You have limited computational capacities, and you always will have this on humanoid robots because they have to carry, each joint basically has to carry the whole robot. So you have limited battery capacity, you have limited computational power. It will be more in the future, but it will never be as much as you can have in a server farm or something like that. And you have to cope with that. So, but the 2 cameras deliver 60 images per second, and the robot requires you to tell it 100 times per second what the target position of each joint should be, or each of the 25 joints. So you basically have to run things at 60 Hertz and at 100 Hertz. So in our system, we accomplish this in many very small modules that do simple things, some do a little bit more complex things. There are more than 100 required to actually play soccer. And these modules exchange small chunks of data, small representations, currently about 150, about where did I see the ball, or what is the position of all my teammates, etc. And these modules run in a provider-consumer relationship, so there's one module detecting the ball, then there's another one. If from the current image there is a detection of a ball, it models the ball over time to establish, for example, its speed, etc. So there's usually, if a new camera image comes in, there's a flow of information through the system, what is computed from that image. So all these modules run into 2 threads. One is triggered by each new camera image, and the other one is basically triggered by all new other sensor data in the robot. And the camera processing thread is called cognition, and everything that has to do with motion is in the bell thread, so it's called motion. So you shouldn't be able to see anything, but all the yellow boxes are modules, all the ellipses are representations that are exchanged, and this one is the small thread. This is responsible for motion. The other one has a lot more modules. So this is a rather complex system for playing soccer. So what has to be done when controlling a soccer robot? The first area is perception. So that's answering the question, what is visible in the current camera image. So the robot takes an image, and you have to detect, okay, there's a ball, there's another player, there's a field line, there's the center circle, things like that. Then there's world modeling, to accumulate this information over time. To establish where am I, so where's the robot on the field, because that cannot be calculated from a single image. Sometimes it nearly can, the field is symmetric, so you never can do that exactly. But there are also many images where you see nothing. Maybe you see one line that tells you not where you are. So where's the ball, and which speed does it have, and where are the other players, for example. And this has to be modeled. Then the robot has to act, so you need routines for walking, kicking, getting up, looking around, etc. And then you have to bring this all together by the behavior control that decides, okay, I know, here am I, there's the ball, my teammate is there, what should I do? So that's behavior control. So for perception, we have camera images are huge, and we have a rather slow CPU, and there's no GPU. So on the robot there's no GPU. So what we use for perception are two techniques to make it fast. One is single instruction multiple data. So because that allows you to process data in parallel. And we use this for color segmentation of the whole image. So basically, from the whole image we distinguish areas that are black, white and green, nothing else. So this can be done rather independent of illumination. Then we use one thing that is usually not done in image processing at such an early state is we know the perspective of the robot. The robot is standing on a field and everything it sees is basically on the field plane, at least with feet or so. So we have an expected size of all objects in the world, simply from where, at which position in the image I know if the ball would be there, it must have this size. And we can use this to our advantage to process things quickly. And for example, we use this by only scanning part of the image for patterns that can indicate that we find a certain object it could be there. And so we can scan in larger steps at the lower end of the image because things are bigger there, they're depicted bigger there, and we have to scan with a finer degree the higher we come in the image. And then when we find patterns that indicate, well, that could be a ball, for example, then we have special handlings for all different object types. And later, if we have detected a feature such as the ball, we can simply by projecting the pixels back into the field can determine the distance to these objects. Because we know the ball is on the field plane, and so we can, if we've seen it in a certain position in the image, we know, okay, it will be at that distance from the robot. And so we get information, local information around the robot. That's what the perception does. So one example for special processing, ball detection was a big topic last year because before the ball was orange, it was rather simple to detect. Now we have a black and white ball between robots that are white and have dark gray parts and are round in many parts. So it's not really that easy. So the first step is in this grid, we search for patterns that might be a ball. And there we start further processing. And there are other teams who use deep learning for ball detection. We don't, but they typically also have such a pre-processing step because they cannot feed a whole image into a network on this CPU. That's impossible. So they find a certain area in the image and then scale it to a fixed size and then put it into a network. That's something that is feasible. But we decided to basically explicitly program the ball detection. So just around the candidate position, so only a small area where the ball is, we compute a contrast image where we calculate where contrast is, in which direction it's pointing, and then we use a very fast contour detector that has a model of how the ball, the outline should look at that part of the image, and then it searches through the image in this area and finds the best match. And then we have we subsample a pattern on the ball and have basically a pre-learned table that says, okay, these combinations of dark and bright pixel, that's a pattern that can be on a real ball. So, and this runs rather quickly, so it's only a few milliseconds to do this for quite a number of ball candidates. So, this assumption that everything is on the field plane is unfortunately not always true. In the final of this year's German Open, there was this scene. So again, Leipzig against us. Robert unfortunately falls down and scores an own goal. And well, the ball was in the air, and when it landed back on the floor, then it was seen by the goalkeeper, but this was already too late, because you need a certain number of images after each other to determine the speed and to detect, well, if the ball is actually rolling towards the goal. So we won it anyway, so it can happen. In second note, the ball was not the only thing that was flying around in that game. That was 1 minute later. So there was a rolling head for the first time in, I think, 9 years or so. So, this brings me back to world modeling. So there are many states that you cannot determine from a single image. So they are not directly observable, sometimes literally because something happens next to you while you look in another direction, and sometimes because your data is just not good enough to detect it from a single image. So, and we can do world modeling per robot, and we also combine information for the whole team by communicating through wireless with each other. So for example, the own position on the field is one thing that has to be modeled, or the motion of the ball and the other robots. So why do we need that? Measurements are often wrong or imprecise. The whole robot is shaking, it's walking, so it's what you are told not to use your mobile phone recording like and shaking. So and that's what the robot is doing all the time, so the measurements are rather imprecise, and it sometimes happens that something is detected that isn't there, or it often happens that something that is there is not detected in a single image because it's too blurry or it's too noisy, etc. So, and this is all solved by probabilistic methods. This is standard in robotics. So for basically all the world modeling stuff, probabilistic methods are used. For example, here the robot has moved without without knowing about it, and so it walks through the world, and you can see the uncertainties there. And after a while, it has accumulated so many readings that say, well, that nothing adds up. It decided to go for the penalty area that it has recorded a couple of times, and then says, okay, I must be somewhere else, and then jumps to there. But for a while, it still believes in its previous location. So then there's walking. Walking is basically shifting the weight of the robot from one leg to the other, and if one leg is in the air, then to swing this leg in the direction where I want to go, and and then at the end, when the foot touches the ground again, to start the next step. And we use to detect when the foot actually touches the ground the pressure sensors under the feet, and then start the next step. And we also use for balancing the gyroscopes in the chest of the robot that are simply used to press the support foot in the other direction, so to stabilize the robot if it's falling forward or something like that. These are very simple techniques. Actually, until last year we had a much more complex system with stuff like zero moiling point and etc. And this works actually better. So there are very simple techniques in there, and they work better than all the highly complex modeling that has been developed so far. This is rather surprising. Then robots have to get up if they fall down. And this is actually pre-programmed, so this is a hard-coded sequence, but spectators are always fascinated by this, but it's actually a fixed joint sequence with some control points to detect if the getting up doesn't work. Then we have to do kicking. We had several approaches for that. This, for example, is one where you simply have to input the position of the ball relative to the robot and the position where the ball should go, and the system calculates what motion the leg has to perform to execute this. So far, all these model-based approaches, they can produce sometimes very nice slow kicks, but they're never able to produce really hard kicks, because this is the model is usually not good enough. And in the end of the video, you can see that this also fails. So this was a challenge in 2013 that we won the passing challenge. And yeah, and it even rolls behind the robot. So it's the balls are actually, it's not really predictable what happens at the end. So and then we have to rotate the head to focus on certain aspects of the field, and we also use knowledge about the world. So to improve localization, we know, okay, if we look there, we will see the center circle, and if we look there, we will see the ball, etc. And this is combined. And we also take the arms out of the way, which has an impressive effect on referees. If you have human referees in the league, and they say, okay, he's careful because he takes the arms away. And I think that has spared on some calls for fouls, because it looked like we were careful in certain situations. So, behavior control, we use hierarchical state machines to describe the behavior of the robots. You have a rather complex behavior. This is a very simple example of a goalkeeper that isn't used in that way, and state machines are very good for describing robot behavior, because we still have uncertainties in the world model. So for example, if I have a goalkeeper that should go to the ball if the ball is inside the penalty area, and it should stay inside its goal if it's not, and the ball is on the edge of the penalty area. It may happen that it looks there and say, okay, I have to go there, and then it starts walking, model shifts a little bit, and now the ball is outside the penalty area. If I do this with decision trees, the goalkeeper would immediately go back and then maybe say, oh, the ball is there inside, I have to, so you get an oscillating behavior. With state machines, you can basically manifest decisions. So goalkeeper decides to go there, and you have a different set of rules not to go there anymore, like it's 20 centimeters outside or something. And this stabilizes behavior a lot. And then you can put these state machines in a hierarchy, so one state machine decides which other state machines are executed, and this allows you to implement rather complex behaviors. For example, this is the human behavior of 2016. Each box is a state machine, so and it goes further. So this is the whole soccer playing system. And then there's team play. We have roles to organize the team. There's the role of the striker, the supporter. Breaking supporter is the player that goes next to the opponent goal. There's the role of defender and the keeper. And except for the keeper, where the rules say what the robot with the number 1 on the jersey is the keeper, these roles are exchanged dynamically between the robots. So the robots are theoretically all the same, so they can flip their roles continuously. And this simplifies programming the behavior a lot, because, for example, our defender doesn't know how to kick a ball. Because what's happening in the game is, if there is a ball rolling towards a defender, then the defender blocks it, and then the defender is the closest robot to the ball, and it becomes the striker. And then the part of the behavior that is responsible for the striker is executed, and the striker knows how to play the ball. So this is, reduces the complexity of the system a lot with this role. And we use a global world model in the team, one for role switching, but also for deciding on the direction of play, because the field is symmetric, and we use the ball as dynamic landmark so that the team can communicate about something to see whether they are all still playing in the same direction. And teammates' positions are also communicated, and we avoid teammates that we can't even see, so in path planning. And there are also a number of joint actions, for example, like kick-off variants and passing, where robots talk to each other and play a pass. And also the ball tracking is synchronized in the whole team. So if the striker is usually looking at the ball, it has to look somewhere else, for example to localize, then the whole other team is looking at the ball to tell the striker where the ball went if he loses it. So, I'm nearly done. There is already a game humans versus robots. It's not the world champion, it's just RoboCup trustees, and they are not professional soccer players. And they still, this is from 2014, but they still are dominating this game a lot, although they are not professional soccer players. This is the middle-size league, so they already play with the normal soccer ball. But as you can see, well, okay, there they score. Usually they score a goal after the humans decided, well, we have to give them a chance. So it's currently the robots have no chance. Although one must say the game is not really fair, because you have to become world champion in the middle-sized league to come in this game. And who prepares for this game if you have to become world champion first? So, and normally they turn back the aggressivity of the robots a lot, because they don't want to hurt the humans, and so it's not a well-prepared game for the robot team. But still, no chance against human soccer players. So. Okay, let me come to an end. From my experience, robot soccer is a complex and challenging scenario for research in areas of artificial intelligence and robotics. And it's interesting for undergraduates and PhD students as well, because we have a competition. So we already heard today that the first speaker won a competition, and this motivates students a lot to be participate in the competition. And you have to work together as a team, not only the robots, but also the human students to accomplish this. So one thing we also do, we release our code every year, nearly all of it. We only leave out the behavior, everything else is published. So many other teams use part of our code, or sometimes nearly the whole system. Even somewhere is the Z-Knipsers logo in there, which is the team from Zurich. So we also have a Swiss team using our codes, which are now called the Nomads. So, thank you very much. And we have questions.